As we live in a world of social media, likes and instant messaging, but does that kind of communication actually count as real connection? Here with real steps to build better relationships and have meaningful conversations while physically apart is TV broadcaster, human connections expert, and my friend, Riaz Meghji. Riaz, it is so good to see your face. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. Listen, you and I, we always keep it real. And what I want to start by saying is I am incredibly proud of you. Riaz has, he's a walking book. So it's no surprise to any of us that he has created this book, and it is filled with learning opportunities, especially now during a pandemic. I can't think of a better guide. So we're in a situation now, Riaz, where we can't physically connect. People are alone. People are lonely. And you've got some great insight on what drives loneliness. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, thanks, Trace. And you've been an amazing support over the years with this message and obviously with this book. And what I really wanted to focus on was this problem of loneliness that no longer was an afterthought given how it accelerated during the pandemic. And some of the research we discovered, especially during the pandemic, fall of 2020, showed that young adults, men and women, 2 in 5 Canadians were experiencing a significant amount of loneliness. And if you look at what's happening down south, Generation Z or Z, age 18 to 23, they're the loneliest generation. And if you look at the idea of the culture of comparison, the younger generation having to decide, where am I going to live? What am I going to do? There's so many factors. But across the board, some of the research pre-pandemic really looked at some of the key factors driving loneliness for us. One was a lack of social support. 2, poor physical and mental health, which we know has been impacted on such a major level these past few months. 3, just a negative perception about our relationships. And then you think about the work-life balance. That lack of work-life balance and how boundaries disintegrated really put us in a difficult place of how loneliness was affecting us all on a major level.
Now, tech, in your book, you talk about it. It can be a tool to create connection, or it can disrupt connection. So how can we use social media to connect?
This is it's a double-edged sword with what tech and social media provides for us. And the biggest thing I champion right now in this space we're in is how we can be more intentional with our communication versus just relying on being in autopilot mode with our relationships. And if we look at social media, if we want to connect more intentionally, listen more. Listen to our audience. I know social media has been in this space where it's almost posting a highlight reel of, hey, look at how good things are. There's a lot of responsibilities for everybody having to multitask, but engaging your audience, asking the questions, and then listening to what they are saying and driving content that will serve them. And the biggest opportunity we have with social media is keeping that service mentality in mind. If we're going to be real with what's happening, listen to what people are saying, and then figuring out the content we can put out if we're carving out a niche of how that's going to serve them, of how they're struggling, and not just focusing on the personal highlight reel.
It sounds easy, just listen, but a lot of us do not know how to listen. So you're a very good listener. What are the sort of meaningful parts of listening? How do you do that properly?
I guarantee you, anyone watching right now, when we say the words, just listen, half of the audience probably roll their eyes. Okay, another person telling me how to listen. You're like, all right, I already listened. The biggest thing that we need to look at and the opportunity to become a better listener is looking at the culture of distraction that we're living in and how we can combat our distractions. Because in any given conversation, if someone disagrees with you, like Trace, the crossroads conversations that people have had in the last year, this is as polarized as we've ever been. And if somebody is saying something to you that disagrees with your philosophy and you just think, here we go again, we've closed ourselves off. We're not even listening anymore. So we really need to absorb, are we getting distracted in daydreaming, technology, or emotional distractions if we disagree with somebody? Identify the distractions and then start picking them off one by one.
Your favorite question to ask folks is, what is the most important conversation you've had in your life? That's very difficult for me to answer. I'm like, how do I gauge that? But I'm going to ask you the same question. Riaz, what's the most important conversation you've had in your life?
Since I'm talking to you, I'm going to reference a conversation we had, and I don't know if you remember this. This was 5 years ago.
Okay.
And you were very candid in this interview about postpartum depression. And
Yes.
that perspective you gave me, you said something in that conversation that do not suffer in silence because shame will put you in a hole.
Mm.
I always remember that because my wife had postpartum depression, and your realness in that conversation allowed me to understand more of what she was going through, to ask for help and not hide it as a dad and as a husband. And when I think about the opportunity of the conversations and the most important ones people have, how can you go first with that rawness and vulnerability? Because people may be looking at you for more than you think. And in that
Mhm.
conversation, in that date, which was 5 years ago, what you gave us helped us more than you think.
Wow, that is amazing. It is always a good connection when I talk to you, Riaz, and I think that, you know, you've been there for some very tough times, so I appreciate our friendship more than you know. Thank you so much. Kiss Lori and Nico for me, and congrats again on this incredible book. This is the book you need right now, everyone. During this pandemic, every conversation counts. The 5 Habits of Human Connection that build extraordinary relationships is out now.